Hi, this is A. Wesley. That ain't just like a TIN. If you like my video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Topic I'm going to talk to you today about is the Real Housewives of Rhode Island, episode 1 and 2. Now, when I first saw episode 2, I think it was, I saw it on Peacock. I think it came on that Thursday, and then they showed it again that Sunday right after Atlanta premiered. And at first, I wasn't feeling this. I wasn't feeling Rhode Island, at least episode 1. So I said, well, let me go back and rewatch it and see if I like one. See if I like one any better, and then watch 2. So I'm gonna talk about episode 1 and 2. Episode 1 started off um, with Alicia getting her in her house with her husband Gary, and they were talking about the aunt supposed to be coming over to visit, and Alicia said that she met Gary. I think she said 10 or 11 years ago, and she said they hooked up, but they had never got married. And she also had, I think she has a little girl with Gary, or a child with Gary, and she was saying that her aunts want her to move back, I think to Newport and stuff like that. And she don't want to move back to Newport. She want to stay in Rhode Island where Gary is. And she was saying her aunts want her and Gary to decide if they're going to get married or not. And then the doorbell ring, and then the aunts come in, and they were saying they liked the house. I think one of her aunts named Sharon. I think she's the one that smokes. And she came in and said, "What's going on? This is lovely. What's going on? We got a lot of food over here, and stuff going on, drinks going on. What's going on?" She said, "Why you don't want to move back to Newport? We love you in Newport. All your family's in Newport." And she said, "Yeah, but I have my family right here with Gary, and I'm so used to Rhode Island, and then I got my business and stuff." And then one of her aunts said, "Gary, when you gonna put a ring on it? When you gonna put a ring on it?" Gary looked kind of funny. He said, "Well, he said, nah, y'all been dating off and on, been living together for 11 years, and you got a child. Why you don't want to get married?" And Gary said, "Well, I'm not in a big rush." And I don't think she's in a big rush. And then Alicia said, "No, I'm not in a big rush." And I'm looking at Alicia, you lying. You know, if that man would propose to you today or the night, you would marry that man. You know your aunties are right. Y'all just living like that, but you trying to say that that's the life and that's the relationship that you want, being a baby mama. I don't think so. But anyway, on to the next scene, and Alicia meeting up meeting up. I think she was meeting up with I think she was meeting up with Kelsey, and her and Kelsey got to talking. But before that, Kelsey was saying that she had a boyfriend, and that her boyfriend is very very rich, and she know his family is very very rich, and she living a simple life without even having to work. She had to work the day in her life. I think she said she met that man when she was like 25 or 26. But anyway, she says he goes to Miami on business trips. But he also go to Miami to see another woman. While when he come back in town, he's with her. I say, "Girl, you the biggest fool they ever." I say, "I don't care how much luxury, a big house and apartments and stuff that he paying for. He cheating on you left and right, and you just sitting up there taking it." I said, ain't no way I can do that. I'd rather get out and work for me a job." But anyway, and then switch to that scene where where um Alicia was meeting up with Kelsey, and whatever she rode a boat over there to where Kelsey was, and they was having lunch on this boat, and she was saying hi. She was saying, "How you doing, Kelsey?" And Kelsey said, "I'm doing all right. How you doing?" And Liz said, I think it was Alicia. Yeah, it was Alicia. No, it was Liz. Liz said that she became friends with Kelsey. I think she said through Alicia or something like that. But anyway, But anyway, they wouldn't had lunch, and she was saying, "Yeah, how you doing?" She said, "I'm doing all right." She said, "I would be doing better." She said, well, "What's going on?" That's what Liz said. She said, "What's going on?" And she said, about my relationship with my friends. I told you that now that I'm in my 30s, I want to kind of settle down a little more, settle down a little more. But he don't want to settle down. He just wants me to be in the same place that I want to be, but I want to settle down." And Liz said, "Well, have you talked to him about settling down?" She was saying, "Yeah, we talk about it, a little bit, but he's really not into settling down. I'm into settling down and stuff like that." And that's the problem for me. And Liz said, "What are you gonna do about it?" She said, I don't know. I really don't know. It's just that I want to be my own self. I want to be independent." And Liz said, "If you want to be independent and you want to be yourself, you're gonna have to do one or two things. You're gonna have to either break up with your boyfriend, or either accept the situation that you're in." And then Kelsey looked kind of funny. And then it switched to the next scene. I think the next scene was Rosie, and Rosie was saying that she was a reporter, and she used to be a reporter, and she said she met her husband at the studio, and her husband was a studio producer, while she was doing a TV show and being a reporter, and she said he was very handsome and cute. And all the girls were after him, but she the one got him, and she the one chose him, and stuff like that. And she beat out all the other girls and stuff. So that's how they got married. And I think Rosie said her and her husband, I think they have one child or whatever. And then, like I said, Rosie has a nice personality. She's a very pretty lady. But I'm finding out from this episode and a little bit of two that she's kind of messy too. But anyway, on to the next scene. On to the next scene, and the next scene was, I think, Ashley at a restaurant talking to her husband, and she was telling her husband that she wanted him to be more with the family and stuff like that. And she said that when he first started his pizza restaurants and stuff, he had to work 18 to 20 hours, just to get the business up and running. But now that the business is up and running, is successful, she wanted him to be home a little bit more with her and the kids. And she stopped by the restaurant, and she asked him how he was doing. And he said he was doing all right. And she was saying, "You just working too much, working too much." And he said, "Well, I gotta work. I gotta keep the business." She said, "But you can work, but you can also take time out for me and the family. You got a whole big restaurant here. You got a lot of employees and stuff here." He said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He said, "Hold up. I got a call coming in." And when the call come in, she said, "Okay, okay. Now, what do you think about it?" He said, "Well, what is? I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try this weekend to make some time for you and the kids. Make some time for you and the kids." And she said, "Are you really gonna do it? Are you really gonna do it?" He said, "Yeah." And he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna try to and stuff." And you could tell that man was just ignoring Ashley and stuff like that. And Ashley looking kind of funny and stuff. Now you could tell that man don't want to be bothered with Ashley with all that stuff. To me, he kind of like Shamia's husband. He don't mind being with the girls doing everything, but don't bother him with all that type of stuff. That's why I say he's more like a Italian version of Shamia's husband. But anyway, on to the next scene, and the next scene was them going on a picnic, and so they were saying you going I think it was Alicia who had asked Rosie, are you going to invite all the girls? And so I said, "Yeah, I want to invite all the girls. This is for charity. This is my business." And she said, "What about Joe Ellen?" She said, "I don't know about Joe Ellen. I want to invite Joe Ellen, but Joe Ellen was mean to me the last time I met her." She said, "Well, it's up to you." She said, "You're gonna invite all of this stuff." And so they all came to her business picnic, and she gave them little kind of gift baskets and all that stuff for coming and this, that, and that. And then they had a good thing at the picnic, and she was saying, "Yeah, I heard this rumor about Kelsey was complaining about her relationship with a relationship with her husband." And then Rosie said, "Yeah, I I heard I heard he be down in Miami seeing other women while she up in here. And what he is, he seen both of them. And Liz said, I kind of heard that too. I kind of heard that too. And then so and then so Alicia said, yeah, I heard all those rumors and stuff too that was going around, and they were saying, yeah, there's a rumor going around about Ruler too, about Ruler husband cheated on her, and then so. And then so Liz said, I heard those rumors too, but I thought all that was over. I thought it was about 2 years ago because they said they had made up. They said they had made up and everything and stuff like that. And so and so she came back. She came back and she said, "Well, yeah, I'm glad everybody came to my picnic stuff." And then switched to the last one. And then the last one was they had a 4th of July picnic, and everybody was talking. And so all the girls came around, and then Liz said, "Ooh, there was Dolores. Dolores, my friend." And Liz said, "I knew Dolores. Me and Dolores kind of met at a cannabis convention, and we've been friends ever since. Ever since." I said, y'all people trying to get these cannabis conventions and all kinds of stuff on all these reality shows. Anyway, but anyway, uh, 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 Alicia said, "Ooh, there go Kelsey." She said, "Kelsey." She said, "Kelsey and Kelsey, Kelsey and Liz going down to walk by the park." So y'all went by walk by the park. And then so Leah said, "Kelsey, are you all right?" Kelsey said, "Yeah, I just didn't like the fact that they brought up about my relationship about my relationship at the picnic. I was surprised about that. I didn't know people talking about relationship." And she said, "Yeah, I was surprised that they talked about the relationship too." And Kelsey said, "Liz, did you go and tell the girls anything that I told you about what we had at lunch?" Liz said, "No, I didn't tell anybody." And then Kelsey said, "Are you sure you didn't tell anybody?" And then Lynn said, "Well, I might have told Joe Ellen." And he said, "Oh, you told Joe Ellen?" She said, "Yeah, I told Joe Ellen." And then Ashley said, "Ooh, look at them. They over there talking." And then Rosie looked up and Rosie looked around and said, "Yeah, I wonder what they're talking about." And Dolores said, "Yeah, I wonder what they're talking about too. I'm gonna go down there and see." So Dolores went down there, and then Rosie followed Dolores, and then Ashley's talking about she gonna stay up at top. She's not going down the deck. She's not going down on the deck where the tables are, where the ladies are. She ain't trying to be in nothing. And so Dolores said, "What's going on?" And then Leah said, well, Kelsey don't like the fact that some of the girls was discussing her relationship at at Rose's business picnic party." And then she said, "Yeah," and they were discussing my relationship. And then so Dolores said, why were they discussing your relationship?" And then Liz said, well, I told Kelsey that I told the lady that they shouldn't be talking about relationship if she's not there." And then Laura said, "Yeah, that's right. You shouldn't be talking about other people's relationships if they're not there to defend themselves, they're not defend themselves." And then the Laura said, "Well, did you get a chance to talk to Rosie about what she said?" And Kelsey said no. The Lord said, "You need to go ahead on and go up there and talk to her so y'all can get over this, put this on there and put this beside you and be water over the bridge because y'all man." And then so and then so that's when Rosie came down. She said, "Rosie, why you talking about my relationship?" Rosie said, "I heard some rumors and somebody told me that you were complaining about your relationship. And so that's why I was talking about because other people were talking about." And then Kelly said, "Well, you the one brought up at the picnic. I saw that you the one brought up at the picnic. That's why I was so shocked and surprised and didn't say too much stuff." She said, "My relationship was the most important thing in my life, and you shouldn't be discussing my relationship, discussing my relationship." And then so she said, I didn't bring it up. I just heard rumors." And then that was the end of episode one. Episode one did get a little bit better after I talked about it for a little bit. So it's okay. Now I'm finna go on to two after I pause this video. Back. This is part two, and part two is called it's called Ocean, Ocean State Ocean State of Affairs. Uh, it started off with Ashley. Well, this department will start out because I already talked about how Liz said she met her husband and they had a family dinner because Jerry's two daughters that he had from a previous relationship. One of them is having a baby, and their family's supposed to all meet together to discuss it and talk about the baby. And some of the boyfriend's family wants the baby to be a boy, and Liz said that she don't care what it is, but she would prefer a girl grandbaby, and so that was it on that. And so like I said, Ashley and 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 Joella took their kids to the park to play, and then and then and then Ashley was telling Joe Ellen that it's so hard for her being a mom and a working mom, and then her husband is working, and she want her husband to spend a lot of more time with her, but he's just spending 18 hours at the job, and it's just hard on her. And Joanna said, "Well, don't you have a maid or somebody?" And she said, "Yeah, we have a maid come in like once a week or whatever, but it's still hard. It's still hard." And Joanna said, "I know how it is to be a working mother and hard to have kids and stuff like that." So they had their kids on the swinging and all kinds of stuff like that and stuff like that. So I think both of these ladies are young, and they are young mothers, and I think it's hard on them, anyway. But Joella said, well, we kind of brunette together, and we're kind of this together. I still have a little stuff in common with with uh with uh with uh with uh Ashley. I mean, Ashley said with Joella, maybe a little bit with Rosie too, but not so much. And then switch to the next scene, and I couldn't find too much going on in Ford. And then the next thing was Liz and Liz meeting up with yeah, Liz meeting up with Ruler, and her and Ruler was at the table talking, and she was saying, "Yeah, Ruler, said, Ruler, how are you doing?" I'm saying, "I'm doing all right." She said, "Oh, Kelsey's supposed to be joining us later. Kelsey's supposed to be joining us later. Kelsey, join them later." And he said, "How are you doing?" "I'm doing all right." And and Liz said that she met Ruler that she met Ruler I think said she met Ruler through Alicia or Dolores, and then Kelsey said that she met Ruler through Liz, and so that's how they got the connection going on. But anyway, she was saying, yeah, people been talking about my marriage, and Kelsey said, yeah, people were talking about my relationship at the picnic, and I was surprised people were talking about my relationship at the picnic, and then so Wheeler said, yeah, I was surprised by that too, and Kelsey said, yeah, people were talking about me when I wasn't there, and then Liz said, Kelsey, I had your back. I told the rest of the ladies that we shouldn't be talking about your relationship. If you're not here to defend it, you're not here to defend it. She said, I'm always going to support you. I was going to support you. She said, thank you for that, Liz, and stuff like that. And then so, and then so, Kelsey said, well, Kelsey said, well, they were talking about your relationship too, Ruler. And Ruler said, what? She said, yeah, they were talking about the relationship. They were saying that your husband cheated on you, and there was some pictures floating around. And then she said, what pictures are floating around? And then Liz said, I heard that too. I heard that too. She said, Rosie said that she had some pictures going around. And I told Rosie to send me the information. And Rosie sent me the pictures and stuff. And so, Kelsey said, that woman that you don't want to have nothing to do with, is that the same woman that was in those pictures that is floating around in there? People saying, she said, I'm not discussing that W. And she was saying that W has nothing to do with this. And she was saying we both. She said, well, we both did stuff back in the past. Everybody did stuff in the past, and they're not confessional. Ruler said that she knows stuff about Liz, but she not saying what's going on with Liz and this stuff about Liz and her marriage that ain't up to par. And she was saying, Liz, everybody go through stuff, but me and Brian have worked all that out, and that was over 2 years ago. She said, but the pictures are still floating around. She said, I don't care. Me and my husband are good. Everything is good. Everything's good. And then Liz said, by me being your friend, ruler, I want to tell you this. You sound a little bit delulu. You sound a little bit delusional. There's all these rumors going on. I said, I've already addressed that. And she said, just like you, Liz, you can't, you've been around and I've heard stuff about you, just like you can't birth children. Say, birth children. She said, what do they have to do? What do they have to do with it? She said, I do have daughters. I have Jerry daughters. Even though Jerry has these daughters from two other women from a previous relationship, they're my daughters. They're my daughters to me. They're like my daughters to me. You shouldn't even brought that. Shouldn't even brought that up. And Cousin said, yeah, that was wrong. Really, that was wrong. Really said, well, I'm sorry. I apologize. I apologize to you, Liz, but I'm just saying the way you talk about me and my marriage stuff. And I was saying, that's right, Lula. That's right, Ruler. Get back at Liz. Get back at Liz. Liz one of them people who like to hide her hand, who like to start messing and then hide her hands and stuff like that. At first, I thought Liz was gonna be one of my favorites, but I see Liz is kind of messy, just like Rosie. But anyway, but anyway, that was all. And so after that. After that scene, the next scene was them going to the winery, and then they were all getting in a van, and then they were saying, well, yeah, everything's at the point. I hope we have a good time at the winery. And Liz said, I want us to have a good time at the winery too. And so they got to the winery, and then the lady said, "Ooh, it's a 6 seat. I think it's six. Or, I know it's 7 seats here." She said, "Somebody missing. Somebody missing." And they said, "Yeah, somebody missing." Then Rosie said, "Yeah, who's missing?" And then Kelsey said, Ruler, is Ruler coming?" And then asked that they even spell her name wrong. They spell her name Rulie. And she said, "No, that's Ruler." And she said, and Liz said, "Well, she was supposed to be coming, and everybody was invited to come." And then said, "Why she not here?" She said, "I don't know. Maybe she coming late." And then and then the killer said, "Did anybody hear from Ruler?" And then Liz said, "No, let me call her and see what's going on." So Liz called and said, "Ruler, what's going on? We was expecting you to be here at the winery. You coming?" She said, "Oh no, I'm not gonna be able to come. I'm not feeling so well. I'm not feeling so well." She said, "Oh, you're not feeling so well?" Liz said, Liz said, "That's okay. You just go lay down and rest and take care of yourself, and hopefully you feel better." Next thing you know, Alicia talking about, did she really not feel bad? She said, "Oh, yes, she not feel bad. Maybe she didn't want to come because she thought we were gonna be talking about her relationship." And Kelsey said, "Yeah, that's probably why she didn't want to come. I don't believe it." And then so that's when what's called brought up the situation, and then Rosie talking about it wasn't her that brought up the situation, and then Liz said, "Yes, it was you." And then they got the organ back and forth, and the show went on. That's all I have for this video. This is A. Wesley. That ain't even tells it like a TI is. I am out.